恭敬大德圣定，为此法会，是一切众生经转妙法轮，教导我们如何了生脱死离苦得乐，殊人无生。Will the Sangha with great virtue, out of compassion, for the sake of this assembly and all living beings, please turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to leave suffering and attain bliss, and end birth and death, and quickly realize non-birth.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one. Namo sadanto suchetoye alahati sanmiao sanputo che. 无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in a billion eons. But now we see and hear it, and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Namo, quelling disasters, lengthening life, Medicine Master Buddha. 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 Medicine Master does come one, Medicine Master does come one, Medicine Master does come one, Medicine Master does come one. Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Realm Master, and all good knowing advisors, Amitabha, welcome back. We are on our Sutra lecture 164. Let me get today's slides as usual. Does anyone have any questions they want to bring up or anything they want to share? Want to get today's slides? Anyone? No? Any questions from last week's lecture? No, everyone's expert. Okay, anyway, today I will start off with a someone asked Bodhidharma a question. It says, but suppose I don't see my nature. What is see my nature means when you see your self nature, your Buddha nature. Sometimes Shufu says your original face. The Shurangama Sutra calls it what is the Shurangama Sutra calls it? I can't recall right now, but you get the idea, okay? The true wisdom. So the question is, if you don't see your self-nature, can you still attain enlightenment by invoking Buddhas? Invoking Buddhas is mindfulness of the Buddha, or the Pure Land practice. Invoking means reciting, but not just reciting with the mouth, but with the mind as well. Reciting sutras, making offerings, observing precepts, practicing devotions, or doing good works. These are all the things a good Buddhist is supposed to do, right? And Bodhidharma's answer is no, you cannot. So why are we doing all this? Well, we're going to find out. Okay, we already found out half, more or less. So today we are going to look at what the sutra means when they talk about bathing, for example. Is it just taking a shower, bathing? Praises, when the sutra says praise the Buddha, what does that mean? And then circumambulation, if we have time. All right. Okay. Now, let me skip some. Where is it? Okay, hold on. Give me a second. No. Okay, bathing. Oh, before I start on bathing, I got some questions. 2 questions about meditation. Following from last week's questions, and meditation is not just about technique. Usually, when people have questions in meditation, you are dealing with the character of the person, with their personality, with their habits, with their understanding of the Dharma, rather than the technique itself. The technique is techniques in meditation, like counting your breathing and dealing with certain things, it's very rudimentary, it's very beginner level. But it is what's actually very important, as highlighted in the Shurangama Sutra, is more the habit of the person, the character of the person, and that's what you're dealing with when you give advice on meditation. Which is why if you don't know someone, it's very, very hard to know how to tackle the issue, because you don't know what's behind their question or the reason they have certain feelings or questions. Yeah. All right. Now coming to bathing. All right. Excuse me. This is the part of the sutra where the Buddha says, having bathed until clean and fragrant, they should put on clean clothes. Okay, this is a part of the Medicine Master Buddha Sutra. So, there's a question. Now we move to what Bodhidharma has to say about bathing. So there's a question. Someone asked Bodhidharma, he says, but the Bath House Sutra. There's a sutra where a young gentleman during the Buddha's time wanted to offer bathing facilities to the monks. And so the Buddha outlined the benefits of providing monks with bathing facilities. So if you read the sutra, it's very straightforward. Buddha talks about seven things, 7 benefits you can get. Let me see, hold on. I'm not sure if it's 7. While I speak, I'm going to look for it. So the Buddha talked about the different benefits of providing bathing supplies for monks, and so it's very easy to take it literally, okay, and think that the Buddha is talking about bathing, all right, but from Bodhidharma's perspective, it says, so the question is this. The question is, but the Bathhouse Sutra says, by contributing to the bathing of monks, people receive limitless blessings. This would appear to be an instance of external practice achieving merit. The external practice here meaning providing bathing facilities, like you build a hut for bathing, you provide vessels excuse me, to contain water, you provide fire to heat the water. So those are the external practices. So the question is, how does this relate to beholding the mind? Beholding the mind means meditating or being able to practice until you uncover your true wisdom. So Bodhidharma's answer is, when the Buddha spoke the Bathhouse Sutra, he wanted his disciples to remember the Dharma of washing. So he used an everyday concern to convey his real meaning. So he used a metaphor, in other words. Okay, and what's the metaphor? Excuse me. So it says the Buddha's real meaning is hidden in his explanation of merit from 7 offerings. Okay, what are the 7? These are mentioned in the sutra itself. The sutra is only found in Chinese. I don't think there is an English translation, but it's very hard. I couldn't find the English translation, only a reference to the English translation. But basically, the Buddha told the layperson who wanted to make the offering, he says, if you want to set up bathing facilities, you need 7 items. And if you have these 7 items, you can remove 7 illnesses and you will receive in turn 7 blessings. Okay, very straightforward. So what are the 7 things that you need to offer? So the Buddha said, number 1 is clear water or clean water. Number 2, fire. Number 3, soap. At that time, actually, they didn't use soap. They used clay balls. They would take purified clay and sprinkle with water, and with that they will rub their bodies to like an exfoliating kind of thing to cleanse the body of dirt and oil. The 4th is willow catkins. That is how you say to use as a toothbrush. Okay. Number 5, pure ashes. That's for cleaning. The 6 is ointment, and the 7 is the inner garment, because when monks bathe, it's a public facility, so you wear a bathing garment as you bathe. So Bodhidharma says the Buddha used these 7 to represent 7 other things that cleanse and enhance a person by eliminating the delusion and filth of a defiled or poisoned mind. So while our normal mind tends to think of bathing as in the physical body, the Buddha thinks of bathing as in purifying the mind instead. Okay. Okay, what are these 7 things? It says the first of these 7 is morality. Morality is virtue. It comes from holding precepts, which washes away excess just as clear water washes away dirt. Okay, so clear water means the purity of precepts. Second is wisdom. What is wisdom? Fire. Actually, I should introduce fire first, but that's how the text is. So number 2 is fire, which means wisdom. So it penetrates the subject and object. Subject and object means the person doing the meditation or observing, and object means reality or the false reality, and you want to penetrate that. Number 3 is soap, which is discrimination or wise discrimination, which gets rid of evil practices, or maybe not evil practices is correct, but maybe a more appropriate term would be unskillful practices. So you know the difference between doing something that's beneficial and doing something that's not beneficial. Because during the Buddha's time, just like now, there were a lot of other religious practices around. Number 4 is the chewing willow catkins, which is a toothbrush, a natural toothbrush, which we still have to this day. It's a special, you can buy it in India, and I believe some monks in Thailand still use it. It's a special wood that when you chew on one end, the fibers of the wood will separate, and it looks like the bristles of a toothbrush, and then you use that to brush your teeth, and that means honesty, which removes delusions or ignorance. Okay. Number 5, pure ashes represents true faith, which resolves all doubts. Okay, faith in Buddhism does not mean, it's not the same as when they talk about you need faith in, say, like in Christianity. In Christianity, faith is number 1. You need to believe. You need to believe in God. You need to believe in Jesus. And all you need to do is, is just say those words, and you will receive the salvation from God or Jesus. I'm not quite 100% sure if I'm using the right words in the right way, but you get the idea. In Buddhism, faith means confidence. Confidence in that the Buddha has achieved what he has said he has achieved. So that means he has he's not speaking out of imagination or conjecture or theory. He's speaking from experience. He's achieved it himself. So you have confidence in the Buddha. And from there, you have confidence in the Dharma because the Buddha is explaining to us, describing the way things are. And the Dharma is the way for us to achieve the same as the Buddha, okay, or as our intentions, depending on our three vehicles, whether we are the sound hearer vehicle, the Practika Buddha vehicle, or the Bodhisattva vehicle. And the other type of confidence is confidence in yourself, that as long as you try your best, you are on the right path and you too will succeed. If you lack any one of this confidence, then in Buddhism, you don't have true faith. So Buddhism, believing in the Buddha is not enough. The belief in the Buddha has to translate to putting yourself on the path of practice. All right? Okay, so that's number 5. Number 6 is ointment. What does ointment mean? Ointment means patience. So ointment softens the skin, right? So when you have patience, which softens your mind, you overcome resistance and disgrace. So you overcome whatever your own mental habits throw at you. You know, sometimes things get too difficult. You're sitting down and the cushion is too hard, or you've been sitting too long, and you know what you need patience. There's ointment to soften yourself so you can overcome whatever obstacles. And number 7 is the inner garment, which makes you be aware of evil deeds. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So Bodhidharma says these 7 represent the real meaning of the sutra. When he spoke this sutra, the Tathagata or the Buddha was talking to far-sighted followers of the Mahayana, not to narrow-minded people of dim vision. Okay, so what are the benefits? Let me see. Let me get my copy of the sutra. So the blessings, the Buddha said, your own body will be free of illness, your 4 elements. Okay, I think Chinese medicine has 5 elements. I'm not sure. Okay, anyway, it says there are 4 elements and it will all be in harmony. So your body will be strong. Your body will be strong. And then the second benefit will be you are born in a pure realm. That means one of the higher abodes, not just the 6 desire heavens, but above that as well. And then number 3, your body will always emit a pleasant fragrance. That only happens if you hold the precepts well. Okay? And so it still comes back to cause and effect. And then your clothes will always be clean, that's what heavenly clothing is like. Your body will be smooth, moist, and it will radiate light. So there are, I don't remember which heaven and above. There's a certain heaven and above where the light of the sun and the moon cannot reach. But the heaven is not in darkness because the light comes from the bodies of the heavenly beings. So the heavenly beings radiate light. And the 5th blessing is you'll be surrounded by attendants who clean away impurities. It means you don't have to do anything yourself. You have servants, kind of like servants, a retinue to do things for you. Everything you want will be done on your behalf. You can recall your past lives. That's one of the benefits as well. And you will naturally receive blessings. I'm not sure what that means. I think when you're there, your life is so good that you never want for anything. Then number 6, your mouth and your teeth will always be fragrant and neat. Your teeth will not grow in funny places. It will all grow next to each other, very neat. And then your speech will always command respect and people will listen to you. That's number 6. And then number 7, wherever you are born, okay, your clothes and your ornaments will naturally be magnificent, and everyone who sees your clothes and your jewelry or your ornaments will always be inspired by you. Yeah. Any questions while I drink some water? No questions? Okay, let's move on. So Bodhidharma says it's not surprising that people nowadays don't understand. Nowadays meaning what? Especially for us right now, we're in the Dharma ending age. So if you've been with us for the last few lectures, you know, during the proper Dharma age, during the Buddha's time, that was about 500 years, was it 1,000 years during the Buddha's time, people understood how to practice. They just understood. It's kind of like language, you know, when we hear a song, we understand the meaning of the song. But then, 1,000 years after the Buddha's time, it became the Dharma image age. Why is it called the Dharma image age? People started to forget what the Dharma really meant and how to really practice. So very smart people, very wise people, patriarchs and all that, started developing ceremonies like what we have today. The propagation of Buddha images really started during the Dharma image age. And the reason for that is that those are containers for people when they see the form, they see the external form, they know how to practice internally. All right? So it's like you forget certain things, but when you hear a song or poetry, or you read the Dharma, you understand the meaning. So like when you read the Bathhouse Sutra, you understand the meaning and you know, oh, the Buddha is not talking about bathing, you know. The Buddha is actually talking about purifying the mind. And all these things mean all those things. Buddha says one thing but means another. And then during the Dharma ending age, which is where we are right now, we still have the form. So you go to the temple, you have the rituals, you have the ceremonies, you offer flowers, you know, you recite the sutras, but we become attached to the form. So like Shakespeare's English, we have the language, but we forget, but we can't even understand, or we have a tough time understanding. So we are 3,000 years removed from the Buddha's time. So the Buddha spoke a different culture. The Buddha used language, and at that time everything was different. The way people treated each other were different. Their virtues and characters, the intellect was all different from where we are today. Especially with electronic devices now, we are all so distracted. So we get attached to the form and we forget the spirit of the practice. So that's what Bodhidharma is trying to explain. He's trying to bring Bodhidharma, Shufu, the six patriarchs, they all share the same flavor. They're always trying to bring people past the form, back to the spirit. So that's why Bodhidharma says it's not surprising that people nowadays don't understand. He says the bathhouse is the body. When you light the fire of wisdom, you warm the pure water of the precepts and bathe the true Buddha nature within you. By upholding these 7 practices, you add to your virtue. And then he says the monks of that age were perceptive. They understood the Buddha's meaning. They followed his teaching, perfected their virtue, and tasted the fruit of Buddhahood. Okay? Then he says, but people nowadays can't fathom these things. You know, if no one were to explain, if I didn't read Bodhidharma, I wouldn't know what the Bathhouse Sutra would mean. And I wouldn't know that when I read the Medicine Master Buddha Sutra, for example, and the Buddha says if you see or hear the Buddha, or if you want certain benefits and you bathe, I wouldn't know what bathe really means. I would take it at face value and go take a shower with soap and think that, oh, I'm clean now and I'm fulfilling the conditions of the sutra. No, far, very far from it. So Bodhidharma says they use who are they, us, people like us, use ordinary water to wash a physical body and think they are following the sutra, but they are mistaken. And he says, our true Buddha nature has no shape, and the dust of affliction has no form. How can people use ordinary water to wash an intangible body? It won't work. When will they wake up? Okay, who uses ordinary water to wash an a physical body, not even an intangible body, and they think that their karma has been purified. If you go to the river Ganges in India, you will see a lot of people who purify them. They think that they are purifying themselves, and by bathing in the river Ganges. That's one example of people who think that by bathing in the sacred river, they purify themselves. Okay. Then Bodhidharma says to clean such a body, you have to behold it. Behold meaning you have to investigate through meditation. Says once impurities and filth arise from desire, they multiply until they cover you inside and out. But if you try to wash this body of yours, you have to scrub until it's nearly gone before it's clean. From this, you should realize that washing something external isn't what the Buddha meant. All right, Shofu in when they had the delegation to Europe, I think it was during the delegation in one of Shofu's Dharma talks. Shofu said, if you can see your karma, you would feel up the sky, and even more than that, intangible and not tangible. Now we will move to a sutra, a Pali sutta called the Nataka Sutta. Okay, and the Buddha here actually explains what bathing means. It says, mendicants or monks, it's because of bathing off 7 things that you become pure. What 7? Okay, number 1, a view of self, or rather the false self. What represents the false self? Our 5 skandhas, or the 5 aggregates, our which is made up of our body and our mind. Okay, so when we mistaken these 5 aggregates, it becomes the 5 clinging aggregates. We cling to them, and then we will create karma, and we are, everything we do becomes defiled, becomes impure, and traps us in samsaric existence, in the rounds of rebirth. So that's a view of self. Number 2 is doubt. Doubt is lack of faith or lack of confidence. So if someone were to say, are you sure the Buddha, did he really do all this? Is the Buddha real, or did someone invent the Buddha? Or are you sure if you sit in meditation, you can end birth and death? I don't think so. This kind of doubt. If you have this kind of doubt, you never get anywhere in your practice. Number 3, attachments to precepts and rituals. This is people who don't understand the spirit behind the precepts or ceremonies. Like when you come to a temple, and recently we just finished the Guanyin session. Today we recited the Great Compassion mantra from 8 to 10 a.m. These are ceremonies. So people who don't understand, they think that just by performing or by taking part in the ceremony that they have done something good. Okay, but Bodhidharma says, no, that's not going to help you end birth and death. Sorry, that will create wholesome karma, yes, but it's not the kind of karma that is going to help you end birth and death. So that's why it's called attachment to precepts and rituals. Holding precepts is meant to help you lessen greed, ignorance, and hatred or anger, animosity. But some people, the way they hold their precepts, actually create more animosity between them and their family members. They become very hard in their holding of precepts. They don't understand that precepts show themselves in relationships. So they create the very thing that prevents them from ending birth and death, because they don't understand what precepts are meant to do. Number 4, greed and desire. Okay, you're supposed to lessen that. Number 5, hate, anger. Number 6, delusion or ignorance. And number 7 is conceit. Conceit is like you cover things up. The worst conceit is you lie to yourself. You justify things that you do that you know are not proper. So the Buddha says it's because of bathing these 7 things that you become pure. Okay. Now, there's another sutra called the Lesser Discourse at Asapura. It's known the Chula Sapura Sutta. And here the Buddha says, how does a mendicant not practice in the way that is proper for an ascetic? And Buddha says, any mendicant who has not given up covetousness, is that how you pronounce it? Covetousness? Can someone help me? Is that how you pronounce? Nobody? Anyone listening?
Sifu, it's called covetousness.
Covetousness. Thank you. Okay, covetousness. Covetousness means wait, let me see. What does it mean? Like, is it like envy? Is that what it means?
Yes,
someone...
in a way, it depends how you use it in a sentence.
Okay, thanks, Saha. So that ill will, irritability, acrimony, disdain, contempt, jealousy, stinginess, deviousness, deceit, corrupt wishes, and wrong view is not practicing in the way that is proper for an ascetic, I say. Actually, not just an ascetic, but any Buddhist. Okay. In fact, these are the people that you naturally want to stay far away from. You meet anyone with this kind of characteristics, excuse me. No one likes to be near people like that. Anyway, Buddha says, and that is due to not giving up these stains, defects, and dregs of an ascetic. Dregs means waste, something you don't want, residue or waste. These grounds for rebirth in places of loss to be experienced in bad places. Okay, now bear with me, all right, where this sutra is going. Then the Buddha says, okay, I'll give you a quick summary. The Buddha is talking about form. Okay, the Buddha is saying here, don't judge a book by its cover. Yeah, okay, I just thought of that. I'm pretty pleased I thought of that. Don't judge something by what you see, by the form. It's not the form that makes like a monk. Okay, just because someone is wearing left home people's clothes does not mean that the person is a monk. It's through his conduct and his practice. All right. So continuing, Buddha says, imagine that just by wearing an outer robe, someone with covetousness, ill will, irritability, acrimony, etc., could give up these things. Right? So just like for myself, I'm a monk. Just by putting on the robes of a monk, does it automatically mean that I get rid of these bad habits? You may laugh, okay, but I personally know monks who do certain things like they will they used to, okay, they don't do that anymore, but I know certain monks who have superstitious practices. For example, they will shave their head every day, thinking that every time they shave their head, they are getting rid of their defilements. Now, if you translate that to a specific practice that allows you to identify your afflictions and you actually remove them, then good. Then there's nothing wrong with shaving your head every day. But if you only depend on only the act of shaving, and you just like bathing in the river Ganges, and you think like, oh, now my karma is purified for the day, then it shows a misunderstanding of the Buddha's teachings. Okay, and not just that shaving, the other things as well. But anyway, like washing their clothes every day, thinking that wearing pure clothes means they are pure. Yeah. So anyway, Buddha says, imagine that just by eating at set intervals, for example, eating 1 meal a day, reciting hymns, like you come to the temple and you recite any sutra or praises of the Buddha, bathing, living at the root of a tree, which is what Dutanga, one of the Dutanga practices of a monk. Dutanga practices are optional ascetic practices where a monk lives under a tree, at the base of a tree, and you don't stay in one place longer than 3 nights. After 3 nights, you have to move to another place. So the Buddha is saying, imagine, okay, just by doing certain things, okay, following a certain lifestyle, you can give up your bad habits. All right. So the Buddha says, imagine, all right, just by doing certain things, all right, you adopt a certain lifestyle. All right. So outside, you come to CDTB, you act like a monk. You wear the clothes of a monk. You do the morning, evening ceremonies. You eat 1 meal a day. Okay, you sleep sitting up, for example. All right, and the Buddha says, imagine if you just do that, can you get rid of your unwholesome habits? Then the Buddha said, if that were the case, your friends, your colleagues, relatives, and kin would make you an outer robe wearer as soon as you were born. So now the Buddha is using the example of wearing robes, but it applies for everyone. They would encourage you, please, dearest, wear an outer robe. By doing so, you will give up covetousness, ill will, irritability, etc., and wrong view. Right? So Buddha's reasoning is that if just wearing the, say, like a monk's robes is good enough, then, everyone should wear a monk's robes. Then you don't have to practice, just wear the robes, especially since the day you were born. Then you'll be pure, you'll be 100% pure from the day you were born. And Buddha says, but sometimes I see someone with these bad qualities who is an outer robe wearer. Now, the Buddha, when he says outer robe wearer, he doesn't mean only monks. When he talks about those certain practices just now, the Buddha also refers to the different practices or the different teachings during the Buddha's time. Okay, that's what it means in this sutra. But the principle is that the form, okay, form alone is not enough. So Buddha says, that's why I say you don't deserve the label outer robe wearer just because you wear an outer robe. So the clothes do not make the man or the woman. Now, the Buddha says, now, and how does a mendicant practice in the way that is proper for an ascetic? So how does a monk really want to make sure you are being a monk? Or how does a Buddhist want to make sure you are a Buddhist? So the Buddha says, any mendicant who has given up covetousness, ill will, irritability, etc., and wrong view is practicing in a way that is proper for an ascetic, I say. And that is due to giving up these stains, defects, and dregs of an ascetic, these grounds for rebirth in places of loss to be experienced in bad places. All right, so it involves studying the sutras, it involves practices. It does involve morning, evening ceremonies, but using those ceremonies as a way to reflect upon yourself, okay, to change your bad habits, identify and change your habits. So the Buddha says they see themselves purified from all these bad, unskillful qualities. Seeing this, joy springs up. Being joyful, rapture springs up. When the mind is full of rapture, the body becomes tranquil. When the body is tranquil, they feel bliss. And when blissful, the mind becomes immersed in samadhi. They meditate spreading a heart full of love or loving kindness to one direction and to the second, to the third, to the fourth. In the same way, above, below, across, everywhere, all around. This is known as the 10 directions. They spread a heart of love to the whole world, abundant, expansive, limitless, free of enmity and ill will. And then the Buddha says, the same formula for a heart full of compassion, then for a heart full of rejoicing, and then finally for a heart full of equanimity. These are known as the 4 Brahma Viharas. Okay, now I'm going to take a quick digression here. Okay, this is slide 20, so I know where to come back to. This 4 is, let me see here. Now, last week, if you look at your screen, last week we covered what 8 precepts and pure food meant. Okay, what fasting means, because the 8 precepts are also known as the fasting precepts. Now we are looking at bathing. All right, and then in the next passage you see, towards the end, with the words in orange, it says kindness, compassion, joy, giving, and equanimity. Those are known as the 4 Brahma Viharas, and giving is the additional one. I've already covered the 4 Brahma Viharas in quite a lot of detail in previous lectures, so I won't be going into there today. But there's another slide I wanted to show you. When the Buddha talk about joy and rapture, this is what the Buddha means when the Buddha outlined the proper way to meditate. The Buddha says, as a monk or as a Buddhist, the proper way to form the foundation for your meditation is precepts. But precepts here is not just like the 5 precepts or the 8 precepts, 10 precepts. It's wider than that. It's the outcome of the precepts. It means your character, your virtue, how you treat people, how you treat yourself. And if you do it right, the Buddha says you don't have to wish to be free of remorse. It naturally happens. It's cause and effect. And then when you are free from remorse, you don't have to wish to be happy or to have joy or gladness. The Buddha says that happens by itself. You cannot avoid feeling joy. And when you have joy, you cannot avoid feeling rapture. Rapture is when you sit in meditation and your body doesn't fight against you. Your body becomes soft. Why? Because your mind is soft. Okay, if you try to meditate, excuse me. You can try this example, okay? If you want to meditate and you know how to meditate and you have meditated before, you can experiment. To choose one day. On that day, you go out and you be a total jerk to everyone you meet. You make people upset, you argue with people, you fight with people, you insult people, you just make people very unhappy. Okay, and then you meditate. And then the next day, you do the total opposite. You do what the Buddha teaches us what to do. You treat people with loving kindness, you treat people with compassion, you help people, you are nice to people, you give them compliments, you help them, but compliments that are genuine, okay? Don't be fake. You praise them, and then you meditate and see how it feels. So it's natural. What the Buddha is trying to say is that if you want to meditate, it's your lifestyle, the way you treat people, that makes all the difference. Okay, that's why from precepts you lead to concentration and then wisdom. And then the rest of the graph, the graphic that you see in front of you is just the Buddha explaining how step by step. You don't have to wish for it. It happens naturally. A good example of this, okay, is Elder Master Xin Lao Sang, our Shufu's, our Grandmaster. Shufu is our Shufu, our master. Xin Lao Sang, Elder Master Xin is our Grandmaster. So what happened to him? He was in the Zhongnan Mountains and it was snowing, and he wanted to eat a meal. So he bought some potatoes. So he was waiting he built a fire, he bought some water, he put the potatoes into the pot, he covered the pot, and he waited for the potatoes to be cooked. And then he heard a knock on the door. Okay, the next thing, before he knew anything, he heard a knock on the door. So he opened the door, and the person who was at the door was one of his fellow cultivators, because the Zhongnan Mountains attract people of a certain skill. When you meditate and you reach a certain level, usually is when you see your true face, your original nature for the first time. You have a feeling that you just want to escape. It's an overwhelming feeling that feels very, very natural. That's how you can understand. If you have experienced that state, you can understand how those old Taoist masters, the rishis in the Indian classics, or even in our sutras like the Buddha, our Buddha Shakyamuni in his past lives, how they can escape to the mountains away from people, and they're not afraid of getting enough food or not, because they stop worrying about those things. All they want to do is to find a quiet place away from people where they can meditate. So the Zhongnan Mountains have people like that. So when Elder Master Xin opened the door, one of his fellow cultivators on the mountain said, "Oh, we haven't seen you for a long time. Where have you gone?" And Elder Master Xin didn't know what he was referring to. And then he said, "Oh, won't you come in? I'm just preparing my lunch. Why don't you join me for lunch?" And then he opened the pot. And what did he see? Anyone who knows this story? Anyone? What did he see when he opened the pot? Come on, it's a very famous story. Okay, I won't give you all waiting. When he opened the pot, he found that there was no water in the pot, okay, but there was moss, not moss, mole. Yeah, mole had grown a few inches, I think, to the top of the pot. Yeah. So what happened was, as he was waiting for the potatoes to be ready, he entered samadhi without even trying to. He was just sitting there, and his mind was so quiet, so serene that he entered concentration. And before he knew it, it takes a long time for mole to grow that high. I don't know, more than a few days, right? At least a week or two, I don't know. Yeah. So if I ever get into that state, if I'm boiling mounted potatoes or instant noodles, I will let you know how long it takes. Anyway, that's a story of Elder Master Siyin without even trying, okay, and he enters samadhi. So that's how it works. Okay, coming back to our slide. Where's my slide? Slide number 20. Let me go back one slide. Okay, this is a slide we saw just now. If you look at the first paragraph, that's what the Buddha means. They see themselves purified from all these bad, unskillful qualities. Seeing this, joy springs up. You cannot prevent the joy just comes. You just feel joyful. And when you feel joyful, rapture springs up. And when the mind is full of rapture, the body becomes tranquil. And when the body is tranquil, they feel bliss. And when blissful, the mind becomes immersed in samadhi. And so when you cook your potatoes, you get mole instead. Okay, so be careful. Okay, don't fall into samadhi when you cook potatoes. All right, now moving on to the next slide. Okay, we covered this already. Okay, and then we move on. The Buddha now gives a simile or metaphor. He says, suppose there was a lotus pond with clear, sweet, cool water, clean with smooth banks, delightful. Then along comes a person, whether from the east, west, north, or south, struggling in oppressive heat, weary, thirsty, and parched. Melinda just shared a photo of a peacock in CDTB hiding from the heat when she was there. So imagine that peacock finding this lotus pond, and then the Buddha says, no matter what direction they come from, when they arrive at the lotus pond, they will elevate their thirst and heat exhaustion. In the same way, suppose someone has gone forth from the lay life to homelessness. Whether from a family of aristocrats, Brahmins, peasants, or menials. That's what the four direction means. It doesn't matter whether you're rich, you're poor, you're smart, you're dumb, or you are from a higher caste or lower caste, and has arrived at the teaching and training proclaimed by a realized one. So the teaching and training here is important, because no matter where you come from, as long as you follow the path, the teaching and training, the Noble Eightfold Path, right? The Buddha says, having developed loving kindness, compassion, rejoicing, and equanimity in this way, they gain inner peace. Because of the inner peace, they are practicing the way proper for an ascetic, I say. And suppose someone has gone forth from the lay life to homelessness, whether from a family of aristocrats, Brahmins, peasants, or workers, and they realize the undefiled freedom of heart and freedom by wisdom in this very life, and they leave having realized it with their own insight due to the ending of defilements. They are an ascetic because of the ending of defilements. Okay, not because of the clothes you wear or the lifestyle that you keep. Okay, it's by getting rid of your afflictions. Okay. Now, any questions before we move on to our next slide? No?
Sifu, I have a question.
Yes, Saha. Okay, Saha, I'm faster, not Sifu. Sifu is our Sifu, which is Venerable Master.
I'm sorry, Fasha.
We take refuge. Yes. Okay. Yes.
I just would like to know, you mentioned something about, so what about chanting mantras and reading sutras? Does that also reduce your bad habits, help you to reduce your bad habits and bad afflictions?
Okay, well, let's take Om Mani Padme Hum, for example. Because when you recite something, when you do a practice, you don't do a practice blindly. You do a practice because you have reasons behind why you do a practice. Okay? Like when you eat, why do you eat? Because you're hungry. If you're not hungry, you're not going to eat, right? Or you eat certain foods for health reasons, that's your intention. So behind every Buddhist practice that we have, we should have intentions. Why? We should be very clear. Why are we doing this? Why am I going to the temple? Why am I volunteering? Why am I practicing generosity? You're not supposed to do it blindly. Okay. So for example, Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum, one of the benefits, according to Shifu, is that if you recite it, the living beings in the area, something like in 500 years, they will be liberated, or animals will be liberated, something like that. So for someone who knows that, and they say, oh, okay, good. That's why I want to recite Om Mani Padme Hum. And so they hold that intention in their heart. So they're not doing it blindly. So that's why there are so many mantras around. Some mantras are for protection. Some mantras are to give rise to compassion or to help people, like the Medicine Master Buddha mantra or the Great Compassion mantra. So by understanding the reason behind the practice, and you're mindful of the reason, then as you do that practice, it helps you concentrate on those areas that you want to improve on. Does that answer your question?
Yes, for sure. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So at the same time, they're also actually all these practices, they're all very wholesome. Now, yes, Melinda.
What about for those senior monks? They spring water in the Dharma hall. This one, what is the meaning? Is it to purifying the boundary or to transfer the merits to everyone in the hall?
Is to purify. Normally, they do it during purifying the boundaries, or when they want to liberate living beings. But let me come to that in a short while. For Saha's question, all these practices are actually very beneficial. The only thing is when we think that just by doing the practice itself, for example, like offering incense, okay, some people, there's no right or wrong because everyone is on a different, when we walk the Noble Eightfold Path on the practice, we are all at different stages. And a newcomer will not know what Bodhidharma has explained. In fact, it took me many years before I understood what incense really meant, and I was really attached to incense at one point. But it was because of that when I understood, or when I studied Bodhidharma's teachings, then I could appreciate what he was trying to say. But you have to start somewhere. Okay, so all these practices are actually very beneficial, even if the person does not understand what's going on. And they see, oh, you offer incense, so I will offer incense without understanding what it is. But it plants a seed for them. For example, there's a story where I think everyone knows this story. I think it's from the Amitabha Sutra, Shufu's commentary. This old man wanted to leave home, and he went to where the monks were, the arhats, and he said, I want to leave home. So the arhats looked into his past lives, and they looked into 84,000 past lives. 84,000 is a number that means infinite. And they saw that this old man had not done anything wholesome for him to succeed in leaving home. In other words, if you how to say, he lacked any karmic conditions to be able to practice. You could say that. Okay. So they told him, no, we cannot accept you to leave home because you don't have any, we look into your past lives, 84,000 past lives, and there's nothing that you have done that will help you succeed in leaving home. So this made the old man very sad. He says, oh, if I can't leave home, then, I rather die. So he was walking to a bridge wanting to commit suicide. And then he saw the Buddha coming. And he didn't recognize the Buddha because to a lot of people, the Buddha was just, depending on when you saw him, an elderly man. So the Buddha stopped next to him and asked him, oh, what are you doing? He says, oh, I wanted to leave home, but the Buddha's monks did not accept me, and therefore I'm going to commit suicide. Then Buddha said, oh, I'm the Buddha. I will accept you as a monk. And so it is said that during the Buddha's time, if the Buddha accepted you to leave home, the Buddha will say, Ehi Bhikkhu, which means come, Bhikkhu. And just by saying that, your hair will fall off. You don't have to shave your hair will fall off. And the ropes and the bowl will appear in front of you. Yeah, something like that. I'm not sure if it's like magic, or it's because the Buddha is so revered that when people see the Buddha ordaining someone, they just rush to support that person because the Buddha has accepted them as a bhikkhu. Anyway, both ways are right. Okay, and he became a bhikkhu, and then the monks asked the Buddha. The monk said, "Oh, we looked into this person's past lives and we did not see that he has done any wholesome deed." Then the Buddha said, "Well, you are arhats and you can, but your power is limited." And the Buddha could see beyond 84,000 lifetimes. God could see all his karmic seeds, basically. And the Buddha said there was once when this man was chased by a tiger and he climbed up a tree and he shouted Amitabha's name or Buddha's name. And the Buddha said because of that, he has planted a seed, an affinity that the Buddha could now use. Because of that seed, the Buddha could now create the right conditions. The Buddha knew how to create the right conditions so that this person could practice. That's very important. Okay, it's for how do we understand that? Well, it's say there's a child, right? A young child who by nature is very, very selfish. He will never share. Very, very selfish, except his grandmother. You are a teacher, okay, or you are the mother or the father, and you want to teach him, but he won't even share with you. But when it comes to his grandmother, this child will naturally give up his favorite sweet, for example, and do it with a happy heart. So there's this seed inside the child that if you are a skillful parent, you know how to use this precious seed. You know how to create the conditions, and so you might tell him that, oh, how do you feel when you share with grandma? And he says, oh, it makes you happy. He said, but you don't eat it, right? He says, no, I don't eat it, but it makes me happy. So says, so if you don't, even if you don't eat, the happiness is more than the joy of eating it yourself. And the young boy will say, yes. Then you say, but for others, if you are skillful, you can make the child see that if he can learn to regard everyone like how he regards his grandmother, that even if he goes hungry, as long as he shares, he will always be happy. So that's what the Buddha can do, which is why in the Theravada school, the Theravada school can be broken up in two. One is the early the early text, which is the sutras that the Buddha spoke, and then the other one is the actual Theravada school, which is the Shastras and all that, where the monks begin explaining the Buddha Sutras. In the Theravada, because they don't have pure land, they advocate being reborn in the time of Maitreya Buddha, when Maitreya Buddha comes. Why? Because only a Buddha can look into a person's past lives and see all their seeds. And only a Buddha has the ability to create the right conditions for the wholesome seeds to come forth that can help you end birth and death. Which is why during Shakyamuni Buddha's time, so many people became one of the 4 stages of arhats, or ended birth and death. Okay, so all these practices are all very beneficial. But we're in a Dharma ending age, and we made the mistake of thinking that just the practice itself is good enough. And that's what Bodhidharma is cautioning us against. All right. Okay. Melinda, your question was what again? Oh, the sprinkling of water. Okay, sprinkling of water, like all these external forms, is just a symbol. So how you say, I will use the same instance of water when it so during Shufu's time, one of the, I think it was Alan Nicholson. Alan Nicholson built the shells of the Buddha Hall in the city of 10,000 Buddhas. I'm not sure if it was Alan Nicholson, but maybe. Anyway, someone's father was sick, and so I'm not sure what happened, but it came to a point where he did the practice of reciting the Great Compassion Mantra in front of a glass of water, and he would drive 1 hour to deliver the water to his father, and then he would come back. So 2 hours in total. I think he was following Shufu's instructions or something. And so he would recite over the water and then he would deliver the water to his father, who's 1 hour away, and let the father would drink it, and then he would come back. And then later Shufu said that it wasn't the water was just a way for him to express his sincerity. Okay, so don't get too attached to the forms. All right. So the sprinkling of water is an outward manifestation of our intention, which is to purify the boundaries. Okay, of course, some people will say or think otherwise. Yeah, all right. So we know better. We know we don't have to get attached to the form. Okay, it's time, which is good because my next slide is on praises, and I have a lot of slides on praises. So I will keep that for next week. Any more questions?
Sure.
Yes, Ron.
I don't mean to, but the last slide that you just got rid of, you never even explained that. It was you were talking about. I mean, it was good that you explained everything about the water and so on, but then you put up the slide on the Medicine Master Sutra, but you never got around to explaining it. That's all I wanted to say.
You mean this on your screen right now?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I hope I'm pretty sure that you didn't explain this at all.
Yes, because
You're gonna explain next week?
Yes, because we have read the
Okay,
sutra.
okay.
And
Never.
let me show you. So this is a section of the sutra. The Buddha says, if good men and good women of pure faith who wish to make offerings to the world-honored one, Medicine Master Buddha, what are the things that you should do? So make an image. We already covered that a few weeks ago. Then offering of flowers and incense, which already covered. And then the next part of the sutra talks about the 8 precepts and pure food, and then bathing, which already covered, and then the 4 Brahma Viharas of loving kindness, compassion, we also covered that. And then the next part is playing musical instruments, singing praises, and which is why my next slide was on this, praises. So you're right, Ron, I haven't covered that because
okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no, not at all. It's good that you brought it up to clarify. So I've been wanting to take a break. But I think I will finish this part of the sutra because I already have most of the slides up. The reason I want to take a break is because traditionally December is the chant session at the City of 10,000 Buddhas. But but this year I will not be able to do much meditation or sustained meditation because from next year onwards I will be teaching a diploma in Buddhism from the what's the Pali Buddhist and Pali University in Sri Lanka. So they have a diploma course in Malaysia, and I'm one of the lecturers. So I have to come up with the syllabus and I have to do a lot. Basically I have to do a lot of reading, and from the reading I have to come up with the whole syllabus and set the exam questions and all that. So I have to do that all before January. Yeah, which is why I need a break. Yeah, and there's another class I'm going to teach in addition to that, and other work that I need to do. I need to design a Welcome to CDTB booklet for the City of 10,000 Buddhas. So it's going to be a very busy time for me. Okay, so I will let you all know when I'm going on break, but at least for next week, because let me see, it's not just praises I want to cover, but reciting sutras, for example. I'm very excited to share that with you, reciting sutras. And then circumambulation, what it means to circumambulate. Like when you come to the Buddha hall and we round four, in Mandarin we say round four, we walk clockwise in the Buddha hall. What does that mean? You know, all those things I want to I want to share. So as long as it doesn't take too much of my time, I think I can manage maybe in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah. Okay. Now, any more questions before we end? No?
Sorry.
So if we do, sorry,
Yes.
Fasher, do you have any homework for us?
Homework? I'll go read the
Homework.
sutra and Shufu's commentary, and then maybe you can help me explain next time instead of me doing all the talking. Yes, Jacqueline?
Yeah, sorry, Passion. Can I just check? That time you mentioned that the incense, right? We can use the so-called like battery operated or those like not those fire type. So if let's say for oil lamp, can we don't use the fire type? We use the battery operated or even electricity type. Because when we go out of the house, right, nobody at home, right? Then if we keep the fire burning on, I'm afraid of the safety.
Yeah. Okay. Especially for lights. If I'm not mistaken, most of our temples in the US, we don't use any oil lamp anymore. We don't use an open flame because it can be a fire hazard. And then in homes where you have some people have pets, especially cats and all that, it can be very, very dangerous. So in the past, before electricity was invented, the only way you could have light was through oil lamps. But now in modern times, especially with understanding of the sutras, it's not the actual flame itself, but light symbolizes wisdom. So it's kind of, what light symbolizes is this. Imagine you are in a dark room. When I was young, I was staying in palm oil estates because my father worked he was the manager of the palm oil factories. So our electricity would come from the plant. And in the middle of the estate, which is, there's no township nearby, we would sometimes get power cuts. And it would be very, very dark, very, very dark. And there were times when you have to walk around in the dark room and your feet would hit something, or especially in the estates, we have snakes and all kinds of monitor lizards, and you could step on a snake. If a snake was there, you wouldn't know. You would step on a snake, things like that. It gets very dangerous. So in the sutras, when they talk about light or lighting oil lamps, what it means is wisdom. lighting the lamp of your wisdom, because wisdom lets you see things. You're not obscured by darkness anymore. All right. So light in any form, okay, we shouldn't get attached to the form. All right, whether it's oil lamp or electric lamp or one of those fancy electric candles that looks like a flame, it moves back and forth. As long as it's light, okay, or you can open a window and let light in if you move to a new place and you haven't set things up yet. But don't get superstitious. Don't think that, oh, just because I'm offering light, or I have to offer light, or if not, then I'm doing something wrong. Then we misunderstand the meaning of the Dharma or the sutras, the Buddha's teachings. Okay, as we do the outward form of offering light, then on our side we have to do like Saha's question: is there any homework? What should I do to increase my wisdom? So study the sutras, think about the sutras. I have slides about how we should learn the Dharma. Is connected to our sutra section. So as we offer the light outside, it doesn't matter, electric light, candle light, whatever flame, as long as it's light. As long as you remind yourself each time you turn on the light or you observe the light, that do not neglect your inner light of wisdom, then you're practicing it well. All right? So any light will do. Don't worry about the light. Okay?
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you.
All right. Now let us end this slideshow and let me get today we will do the different we will do the transfer of merit, the Abhayagiri style. Okay. We will alternate. Wait, does anyone remember last week, did we do the conventional one, right? We did the conventional one last week, right?
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Peggy. All right, I'm going to put my palms together. Through the goodness that arises from my practice, may my spiritual teachers and guides of great virtue, my mother, my father, and my relatives, the sun and the moon, and all virtuous leaders of the world, may the highest gods and evil forces, celestial beings, guardian spirits of the earth, and the Lord of Death, may those who are friendly, indifferent, or hostile, may all beings receive the blessings of my life. May they soon attain the threefold bliss and realize the deathless. Through the goodness that arises from my practice, and through this act of sharing, may all desires and attachments quickly cease and all harmful states of mind. Until I realize Nibbana or Nirvana, in every kind of birth, may I have an upright mind with mindfulness and wisdom, austerity and vigor. May the forces of delusion not take hold nor weaken my resolve. The Buddha is my excellent refuge. Unsurpassed is the protection of the Dharma. The solitary Buddha is my noble Lord. The Sangha is my supreme support. Through the supreme power of all this, may darkness and delusion be dispelled. Okay, now we're going to do 3 bows to the Buddha, but let me just... Okay. 3 bows to the Buddha. Second bow. Third bow. Half bow. Bowing respect to the Realm Master. Second bow. Third bow. Half bow. Okay. Okay, everyone. Amitabha, and we'll see you next week.